Hey, Sox fans, welcome to Good Guys Talk Back. We are live. Happy New Year. This is season 5, episode 201. I am Nick Murawski, and this is a fan-centric Chicago White Sox podcast. You can find the podcast absolutely everywhere you find your podcast. We've got a YouTube channel, and we are live right now on that YouTube channel. So subscribe, check us out. We're on Twitter at Good Guys TB, Facebook fan page, all of that stuff. We've got some stuff to break up here, Pat, but a new year, a new attitude, perhaps. Happy New Year, buddy.
Happy
welcome.
New Year. Yeah. I'm happy to be here, buddy. Happy holidays. I got a little stage fright. I got to be honest. I've never done anything live like this before.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I trust you. You're going to guide me through
I'm
this.
a trained, I come
trained.
from a theater background. So this is.
Classically trained Nick Murawski, all that good stuff. So you're going to steer the ship. We got a lot to break down and discuss. And I was thinking about it today, Nick. A month from now, we're going to be talking about, breaking camp here and stories leading into spring training. It's going to be here before we know it.
Yeah. I would say around Valentine's Day, right? President's Day.
And I know you love a good President's Day. Let's not kid ourselves. You've thrown the tree out. You're ready to put up a Washington candle and a Lincoln. Get your Lincoln logs, dress those up, put a candle. Do you do that? Do you set up the Lincoln logs with Abraham Lincoln and put a candle inside?
What if you walked into somebody's house and they had these little, Lincoln log shanties like on their, counters, or maybe as a centerpiece on their table, and it's because they were honoring President's Day.
I wouldn't be surprised if it was you, Nick. For those that don't know, Nick is a presidential, aficionado.
Yeah.
Loves politics, presidents, have read a lot of books about presidents. You've read books, leather bound books in your library of all kinds of things. So anyway, excited. So we got baseball to talk about. Let's break it down. It's resolution time, and it's exciting.
So, here we are. You mentioned spring and, all the stuff that comes with it. It sure seems like the White Sox they're done making any type of serious moves. I think we can maybe hope for this eventual trade that we were told about. The great trade, the big trade that Rick Hahn teased us with back in early November. Just wait, you watch. There's going to be trades going on.
Nothing ever seems to materialize for that.
It just doesn't seem to happen for him, does it?
No.
Like, you just kind of. Do you find yourself ever now like kind of rooting a little bit for him? Like, buddy, I just wish something would go your way.
He is the Charlie Brown of GMs after all. and he's just going up there. He's like, oh, Lucy's got the ball out there for me. Somebody's going to make a perfect trade. This is going to be fantastic. And he runs and runs and runs. And the ball gets taken away. And there goes Rick Hahn on his ass again. Just wondering what happened.
You kind of just wanted to just like stop talking. Maybe just stop making. Just stop. I would talk about the past if I was him. Just for when the good times were there for Rick Hahn, if there were good times.
When were those?
When he tore things down, those were the good times for Rick Hahn. He was like, hey, I'm your man to tear stuff down. And it's odd because, Ricky Renteria during that time, who was the manager, he was the guy that like got players to start playing maybe the right way, or the way that White Sox organization wanted him, and it's like, can we get just some folks here that can do it all? They can like tear it down and they can build it back up. They can get players to play the right way and they can get success out of those players. Can we get something like that maybe?
And build a good culture in the clubhouse.
Sure.
Again, we talked a lot about Ricky when he was here and how we appreciated the culture that he created amongst a team that was, going nowhere at the time. And it seemed like players played hard for Ricky. Ricky's boys don't quit. And I can't believe that we're in 2023 now, Nick, and we're talking about, probably, if we could go back and have our druthers, just wanting Ricky to stay and never bringing the Hall of Fame manager in.
Yeah, I wished Rick Renteria a happy birthday on the Locked On Sox podcast.
How
His
old is a
birthday,
Ricky
well,
Renteria these
I
days?
don't, you know what? I forgot the number, but it was Christmas Day is when his birthday was.
Baby.
He's a guy that I think we're going to look back on him over the years, and maybe we already do right now, but we're going to say, boy, he did not get that fair shake, and he was better than we were led to believe.
Yeah.
He can't get it done. He couldn't win that series in Oakland. And there were some mumblings that came out later.
Oh, he screwed that. He screwed up game 2.
Well,
That's
sure,
for sure.
that thing went sideways. But here's a guy that has never really had any experience with success. He dealt with the Cubs organization, and I think he was a bench coach for maybe the Padres for a minute or two when they weren't where they are right now as an organization. And it was like, okay, the Sox had a great 2020 year. It was an abbreviated 60 game season. Some of the numbers that came out of that year individually from players, again, because it was maybe 60 games, they haven't hit those numbers in a while. And maybe you let him go one more year. You say, hey, if we can now build, throw a couple guys your way, build off of this experience. He could have won the division in 2021. You didn't need to roll out Tony La Russa and go through this whole situation that now we have to make up for.
Yeah. And I think, Ricky probably deserves better than just a stopgap, like he was the last 2 jobs he's had, and both happen to be in Chicago. It's like, you're just good enough to keep a seat warm. Don't worry about putting any pictures up on the wall, at least anything with nails. Make sure you're using those removable, Velcro strips.
Yeah.
Don't put any nails in the wall there. So yeah, it's unfortunate, but here we are, Nick. Here we are. And you talk about the good times with Rick Hahn. I'm sure he's had plenty of good times with Pedro Grafal. They've had to have had a lot of sleepovers, and I'm sure they've gone on vacation together.
Oh, sure.
Bosom buddies.
Yeah. One of them, hopefully Hahn, he's got a boat. Maybe they chartered a boat, and maybe both of them went out fishing over the holiday. And you can really get to know somebody when you go on a fishing trip.
How many fishing trips have you gone on, Nick?
How many? A lot. That's why I don't know too many people.
That's why we're not very good friends, because we've never gone fishing together.
The people that I know, I don't have that strong of relationship. We're gonna never gone actual fishing. So I don't know. Maybe they were able to break bread and get together. But I would like to talk about some of the good things I've been reading about our new hitting coach and the assistant hitting coach, and you're hearing from Lance Lynn, you're hearing from Giolito. There are some guys you're hearing from. Thank you, James Fegan, for all the work you're doing with the Athletic. You're hearing from guys about this thing called custom levels and the return to it, and that's really I think going to capture a lot of people. At least it has me in 2023. So New Year's resolutions. We talk. Everybody, I think, in America, in the world, it's health. I want to start eating better. I want to work out more. I want to get.
This is a podcast. This is an intervention for me, is it? There's not going to be 10 of my other friends coming on here and saying, Pat, let's talk about custom levels for you, my friend.
Yeah, that could be an interesting, a different, maybe a spinoff of Good Guys Talk Back, because we could just talk personal custom levels. But that's a theme. Every year I worked at Lifetime Fitness in their customer service, probably 20 years ago, and January was just if you belong to a gym, this January is an insane month, even a little bit before into February, and then President's Day is the good check.
Always President's Day. It's always President's Day. The mark of demarcation for anything in life is President's Day.
And everybody's trying to get healthy, but that seems to be what we're being sold by the organization. Do you feel this? Rick Hahn and everybody that's been able to get in front of a microphone, this is what we're hoping for. We are hoping for health in 2023 for the Chicago White Sox. I'm assuming every single baseball team is hoping their superstars, their core, stays healthy. Sox have been bitten by the injury bug the last couple years. Boy, we just have not been able to get guys to be able to play together for an extended period of time. So you're looking for health, which is great. And then you're looking for guys to return to accustomed levels. And, I'm going to lean into that then. As a fan, if you're selling me that, Pat, well, then I'm going to say, yeah, okay. All right. I'll buy that. I'm going to hold you to it. Okay. Because when you didn't do anything else and you just hoped for health and guys returning to custom levels, and if it doesn't work out, I mean, hey, you got to eat that, right?
Yeah.
Like, that's on you.
I don't understand. I'm fine with that. If that's the narrative that's going to be brought on us again, is basically stay
I can
healthy.
support that.
Thank you, Beeflo, for the greatest, gift of all time. Basically, stay healthy.
Sure.
But listen, that doesn't. Why should it limit them in terms of what they should be doing in the off season? I don't understand why they have to be separate. Right. If they didn't have those guys, and it's like we don't have anybody to return to form, well, I guess we better do something and add to this team, or we're going to be in tank mode and rebuild mode. Why can't it be? We have this foundation of really good players.
This and that. You want this and that.
I want the this and the that. Yeah. This is good.
Well, sure.
That can be good also.
Yeah.
But I'm 100% not understanding why it has to be that way. Like they have to be separated, and it's just the way this organization is run and continue to be run. It's interesting. There was something that popped up, I think, on Twitter the other day. 2 to 3 teams will be sold in the next coming years or something, and Sox fans praying our team is one of them. I don't think that's happening anytime soon, but it is the way that this organization it goes about its business, and I can't understand why. But again, here we are in 2023, Nick.
Yeah, I don't know if I dreamed this or if I read it on somebody's blog or if they really had a source on this, but a reason that Reinsdorf doesn't want to sell is out of like boredom. Like he is not going to know what he's going to do with himself.
Fishing. We just talked about it. Go on a fishing trip.
Just go fishing.
I mean,
that might not be true. That can't be true. That can't be a real thing.
How would we know? The man hasn't spoken to anybody in a while, and nobody was asking him at his press conference when he said we weren't very good at baseball. So
no, that was for obviously, the ACE program, which is a great program and all. Yeah, he is a mystery wrapped in a riddle. So I would say for certain players in terms of New Year's resolutions, if I could gift them a resolution, and they've got to be thinking this already. I look at a guy like Eloy Jimenez, and if I'm going to lean into the health thing, and let's be positive, let's be optimistic in this new year. Let's say, there's no way it's going to happen to the Sox again. Okay. You want to pitch me health? I'll buy into it. I'll get excited about a healthy Chicago White Sox team. And if you really sit down and you think about this lineup and you study, these players, and you're like, wow, if these guys stayed healthy and they all played together, for 135, 140 games, it's a dangerous lineup. It has potential. Now, I know better as a longtime Sox fan that has been watching these guys just, grab their hamstring, collapse after, running out an infield single, or just, rolling an ankle or twisting something. It's like, here we go again. But New Year's resolution, try to play 140 games. And okay. Now I'm not saying play through like horrible injuries, but stop with the workload management. Get these guys to have some urgency at the beginning of the season. Okay. Yeah. Not that play for something that might not happen. Okay. Play early, play hard, play with some urgency in April and May.
Yeah, prepare yourself mentally that you're gonna be playing almost every day, and know that you're gonna get days off, but prepare and not go, well, I know that I'm gonna have days off. They're gonna be built in. That's fantastic. I'm going with Yaz, and I'm gonna gift Yaz as do your best not to be the most controversial player on White Sox Twitter. That's all I'm asking. I'm not asking for him to be, yeah, in terms of living up to the quote unquote, at some point, he was the highest contract ever given out in White Sox history. I'm not asking you to live up to that. I'm just asking you to live up and be available. And I'm asking you to produce the way that we
just be available, man.
Can you just be in the lineup? To just not be someone that everybody's got to, there's got to be two sides about. Right. There's this big divide. It's like him and Moncada, the players that everybody's always divided about. And quite frankly, it's because they don't do what we expect them to do. And there's people that look in their camp, gets on base. That's why we love Yaz. And there's other people out there that say he's not hitting the ball at the ballpark on a regular enough basis, or all these other things. Looking at defensive catching and how he's good and how he's not good. Oh, but he used to frame things better. All this, I would say, whatever Yaz can do, just go out there and perform. Just return to levels. I don't even think
he's your accustomed levels guy.
I'm actually just return to being average. Just be an average ball player.
Yeah.
And that'd be leaps and bounds better than what you were last year. So that's what I'm saying. Just almost like a good umpire. Nobody talks about him after the game because they had a great game. I don't want to talk about Yaz that much, to be honest with you.
If you look at his 2019 numbers with the Milwaukee Brewers, and it was his walk year, it was his contract year, and they were amazing numbers. I mean, it is a no-brainer of why the Chicago White Sox targeted him and gave him the money that they gave him, which is something they should be giving regularly. It shouldn't be a ridiculous, like, wow, the Sox gave $74 million. No, that should be a normal thing. Okay. Talk about getting it to a custom levels. How about spending money? Get that to a custom levels.
Yeah.
You look at his power numbers, the games he played, the strikeouts, the walks. I mean, he had a really good 2019 season. So I think that's what you're talking about. And you read some of these articles, and there's a lot of them that have been written on Grandal since the off season. He is a beast right now. He is working his butt off to get ready to go, not like to get to camp, not to get to spring training to Glendale, but like when I get there, I'm rocking and rolling, man. Like the
last 2 years, he hasn't even, I don't think he's even participated in camp. Right. It was like he's already doing load management in spring training to rest the knee,
because the knee, he hasn't been 100%. And, that has been a way to get him to 100%. So that's a good call, Pat. I mean, he's the guy we talk about all of the time. It's just the disappointment. And there's a reason why the Sox, are kicking the tires on other catchers this past off season. I really think the front office, I don't think this guy can handle it. I'm questioning this guy's ability to handle the workload as a catcher. Now, with the bat, that could be a different story. The shift is gone. I think it's going to improve his offense. And he's talked about it in recent articles. He's like, this is going to be a different year. I don't have to try to swing for the fences when I'm at 2 strikes. I could just, take the pitch where I need to take it. I don't have to try to swing out of my shoes and all this stuff to beat the shift. So that is going to be interesting to watch with Grandal. Lucas Giolito, to me, is somebody that I get the reasons why folks are calling for his head. Trade this guy. He's got little value to us right now. I don't even know if they're going to entertain retaining him, when he is going to be set to walk. But he's one of those guys where you say this could be his big contract year. Show somebody, because the Sox aren't going to pay for starting pitching, and they're probably not going to pay to retain a guy. At least just early on. You never know what's going to happen. Something could change, but show us, man. This is the show me here for Lucas Giolito, and he just. I don't know what happened to him. We know about the weight gain. We know about the muscle stuff. I think he was trying to reinvent himself during the season, which is never a good idea. Love what I'm hearing about his offseason, though. I mean, there's some good positive stuff about where he's trending.
Boy, you're lapping up this offseason with a spoon, aren't you? Man, you are back. You're all the way back now.
I'm back.
The bitterness that was Nick Murawski in 2022 has been washed away, and the optimistic, bright face Nick Murawski that I know and love ready for the season. That's good. No, you're right about Gio. The fact that I've said it so many times, I'm probably repeated this 1,000 times, but you either have to be so dominant with the two pitches that you do have, that you're good enough to succeed, or you've got to continue to invent more and add more to your arsenal. Right? You have to look at a guy like Lance Lynn, who throws mostly fastballs, but none of them are the same. You have to be able to do something like that in your arsenal, where it's a different type of changeup, or it's it does something different, or you're changing arm angles or something else that helps you differentiate and get guys to swing and miss more. Because boy, I almost wrote this down. I didn't have Gio on my list, but I almost wrote down, don't give up the first inning home run, because it's like people are just sitting on, they're guessing one or the other, fastball or changeup, and they're lucky in the first couple innings, and the home run count for him has been tremendous. So,
you got other teams that are doing their homework, which is, I think, what is a hope when we get to the, Jose Castro and the hitting coach portion of this. I feel like, man, I'm excited about how the Sox are going to be prepared. It just felt like other teams were they were better prepared.
Yeah.
And it's not like you had to do a ton of homework for Giolito. You kind of knew what was going to happen. To your point, when you're limited on pitches and you miss, and you're throwing now 93 miles an hour, 92 miles an hour, when you miss, you can't afford that. You can't get away with that kind of stuff. You don't have crazy, you don't have Maddox stuff.
Yeah.
You've got some movement that hasn't been there in a couple of years. The numbers are going to show that. You have to keep guys off balance. And I don't know if it was a lack of flexibility, or he just did not seem right.
Well, right out of the gate, he had the oblique, so
first game,
leading up to it, going into the first game, he gets an oblique. Maybe his mechanics got out of whack after that, trying to, make sure that didn't happen again throughout the rest of the year. But I'm with you on Gio. My next one I had on the list was Lou Bob. Luis Robert, all we've heard about is he's going to be top 5 in MVP. He's going to be the Cuban Mike Trout. I'm just asking him to, maybe this is too much, but live up to the hype finally. It's been a couple of years. We know the talent is there. We all salivate over after we see, the mammoth home runs or the fantastic, he is a Gold Glove caliber center fielder that didn't show anywhere near that, whether it was the vertigo or the issues he had, obviously, with his legs. Last year, he was nowhere near the center fielder that we came accustomed to the previous year. So I'm asking Luis Robert to live up to the hype. And maybe that's too much of a tall order, but we were promised a guy. We're all excited about him. I want to see that guy. And like a lot of these guys in this lineup, I want to see it for 140 games, as you mentioned with Eloy. So
just think about that, Pat. Just try to wrap your brain around 140 games with Jimenez and Robert in the lineup, and playing pain-free. Like, I'm concerned about Robert's hand, whatever was going on towards the end of the season where he was swinging with one hand. They kept putting him in the lineup. And then it was just eventually like, we're going to shut this guy down. What kind of damage? Was there further damage? Is he still is he rehabbing that this off season? Has he been able to participate 100%? That's the concern, because we've heard about guys, with those deep bone bruises, I remember Paul Konerko years ago, of course, where he just was not right. And we found out it was a hand issue, and it was hampering him for a while. Could have been, Frank Thomas, other guys that have dealt with this. Andrew Benintendi, he's coming back from a hand injury, something on his wrist, part of his hand, that I'm hoping, it gets all right, because I do think he's got he really has a lot to offer. The White Sox defensively and offensively, but you got to be healthy. Luis Robert, he to me is the danger. He's the difference maker on this White Sox team. He is the guy that should strike fear and opposing pitchers. And like, what are you going to do with this guy? And we have got guys then surrounding him that are healthy, clicking on all cylinders, and it can be a dangerous lineup. But to your point, he's got to live up to the hype, and I hope that starts day one. He's going to be participating in the World Baseball Classic. It seems like Pedro Grifol is all into it for guys participating in the World Baseball Classic. And Pat, I kind of like, having to play some competitive games early, set the tone. So you hit the ground running March 30th in Houston.
Yeah, and it's not like these. What we're all worried about as Sox fans, and anybody that is a fan of any players playing in these tournament games, is obviously guys getting out healthy. But it's not like our guys have a lot of mileage on them right now, right? They've had so much time on the injured list that some competitive baseball might do them some good. So I'll look at it on two hands. I'll look on one hand and say, please, dear Lord, don't let anybody get hurt, because we've seen this song and dance many times. On the other hand, I'd like to see him get some games in. My daughter just had an indoor softball tournament this past weekend, Nick, and it was constructed in a way there was no right field because there was a netting right behind first base. And anyway, they played three. It was around Robin. They played 3 games. Where I'm going with this is, it wasn't like she was all upset because he came in second place because of run differential. They won all 3 games, but they didn't win because of run differential. They tried to tell her, this is a glorified practice, and it's an opportunity for you out there and get some swings in, see some live pitching. It's not a practice indoors. You get a chance to play against some competition. So that's what I think our players on the, in this tournament will do them some good. They're going to see some live pitching. It's not BP, and you're actually competing against other people that are also trying to win because it's important for them, for their countries. So it's a legit thing. So
you're looking at competitive live pitching, not necessarily guys just, I'm just working on some stuff. And so you don't really know.
Because that's what you get in spring training. Is guys come in there. It's like I'm this inning, I'm throwing all of this or all of all of that just to work on it.
Yeah, I had one more, and then I wanted to switch to kind of a different angle here. But I really, it's Pedro Grifol. A lot, I think, lands on his shoulders. He's got a tall task ahead of him. I love the people that he's surrounded himself with. Again, I wasn't crazy about the hire. Very refreshing that they went outside the organization finally. His baseball resume speaks for itself, but this will be his first time, managing a big league club. And the Sox have the opportunity to return to the top of the AL Central. I'm not scared by any other team in the AL Central. So he talked a big game, Pedro Grifol, when he was hired, and he said all the right things, and it was a lovely press conference.
He won the press conference.
He did. Absolutely. And he probably won a lot of people over. And I like what you're saying, but I'll be watching, and I'll be watching, and I'm going to spring training in early March. And I want to, what's this tone you're talking about? How are you going to hold people accountable? How are you going to balance the veterans and the new guys that, are trying to earn roster spots? They're trying to impress guys like Colas. Whatever's going to happen in second base, we'll probably get to a little bit in this episode a little bit later. But, Pedro Grifol, you're going to have a lot of amped up energy too. And I just hope he practices what he preaches, because I think everything that I've heard about him and the people that have played for him and or coached with him, a lot of positive. It's a lot of positive. So how are you going to get guys to buy into what you're selling? Create that culture that we mentioned at the top of this episode. That's going to go a long way.
Yeah, I like his energy, Nick, and I think that'll be a change in pace, obviously, from the previous manager. But it's just in terms of, I feel like, and time will tell whether this plays out this way or not. I feel like he'll be energetic enough to be in enough of the day-to-day and in the minutia of everyday baseball. So he's got a relationship with each of the players in the individual groups out there, but enough to step away and know that he's got coaches on his staff that have a job to do. I think maybe looking at La Russa, he took like a really back room approach in the way he
way
did things.
back room. He was in a
Way in the back room.
back room.
It's like I'll let my leaders do this. I'll let my coaches do this, but I'm just going to be back here and kind of lead from behind, if you will. So
yeah,
I like that about Pedro, and I like that. I like that. And I also like, Nick, that you and I have we've never talked to each other about picking three people have resolutions for, but we both picked three, and we didn't pick three of the same people. That's just true. Fantastic.
And we never even went fishing. See, that's why me and you, we don't probably need to go fishing because we've known each other for so long. But
I'd like to. I was just Googling great places for friends to go fishing.
Okay.
My last one is Gavin Sheets. Gavin Sheets is on my list, and all I have for him, all I have for him is just prove to somebody that you belong in the major leagues. Last year, he got sent down to the minors, work on some things. He came back and he had somewhat of a respectable return when he came back. I guess you could say he had some power numbers, but I think it's going to be important for him to stay relevant and find his way on a major league team. And I think it'd be important for the White Sox because I think he's a valuable flip piece, in my opinion, right? The left-handed power. But again, we've talked about it till we're ready to throw up. We just have too many of the guys that do the same things. And we really would need him to perform enough where he's a valuable piece to move, in my opinion. So that's my, resolution for him is do whatever you can to stay up with the major league club and prove that you belong in this league, whether it's with this team or another team.
He's an interesting case. He's not going to be your right fielder. It sure seems like Oscar Colas is, and excited to see what that kid can bring. Andrew Vaughn is your first baseman. So where does Gavin Sheets fit in, especially if Eloy is going to be your DH? Is he going to platoon with somebody? Where is he going to find his opportunities and his moments? Because it is difficult, to be that part-time hitter where you're just called in, you're used in spot situations. It's difficult. Are they going to look to, create a hybrid model, or are they going to just, you're off the bench, man. You're going to come in and pitch hit in certain situations late in the game. It's going to be very strategic. But the banning the shift's going to help him out, as it will Yasmani Grandal. But that was what I hoped too, Pat, during the season, is I hope he gave enough of an audition where people were clamoring for him. And I thought, and the off season's not over, but I really thought, hey, folks are going to be needing some left-handed hitters, with this ban of the shift here. I don't think Sheets is going to be a full-time guy. So can we find a partner somehow, where we can get, maybe a veteran second base out of it or what have you. But, okay. I mentioned his name, Andrew Vaughn, and Pat, I am declaring 2023 year of the Vaughn. This is year of Andrew Vaughn. Watch out for this guy. We've of course been hearing about it for a while. The hype, there's a ton. Talk about somebody having a ton on their shoulders. Abreu's gone. Difficult situation to watch and process. I think we're still going to deal with that. And anytime something doesn't go well and Andrew Vaughn's in a slump or Andrew Vaughn struggles, it's going to get thrown back at him.
Yeah.
He's not Jose Abreu. Andrew Vaughn's not going to win a Gold Glove. Okay. He's not going to get in that conversation, but he's a natural first baseman. I think he's going to be able to hold his own. And the fact that he is playing first base, his natural position, without worry of where am I going to get moved to next, and saying all the right things of, I'll play wherever they want me to play. No, you don't want that. You don't want to be playing second base, Andrew Vaughn. You want to be a power hitting first baseman. And he is going to have his opportunity to spread the wings. And I'm excited to see what he's going to do.
Yeah, let's hope so, Nick. The other, concern with him is the back, right? Another injury. It's just something that has hampered him the last two seasons and kind of cut, the length of the season down for him. And, it's tricky. Backs are always going to be tricky. And let's hope that he's got it right and is going to in a good spot. But, you talked about like taking that, picking up the mantle from the previous superstar really, and Jose Abreu, beloved player, and trying to live up to that and fill those shoes. I just wonder if there's a mentor out there that he could reach out to. I'm sure there is. I think Paul Konerko right away, taking Frank Thomas, a future Hall of Famer at the time, his spot, and really, picking up and running with it and becoming the leader of that team. So if he's looking for some mentorship, I would say go there. I think there's a lot of similarities there between Konerko and Vaughn. And you say, he's not going to be a Gold Glover, but Nick, I saw a guy in left field when he was put out there without really any kind of work, after Aloy went down to spring training 2 years ago, to go out there and play the way he did and work his ass off to be more than adequate, I would say, in left field. I think if you give him time at his natural position on an everyday basis, I think he can be a really good fielder. I think that he's got that, and he's going to be in a good spot there. So I'm excited to see what he can do with the glove.
Great point on Paul Konerko. Boy, I feel like that has been something that Konerko has done in the past, is gone back to talk to, the players. He lives in Arizona, and it's just, that would be a great call by Grifol, right? Like reach out to some folks that, still are removed from like Przinsky, bring him in to talk. Like, you've got some Sox ambassadors, but hey, love Kitty Cat and Fisk and some of these other guys, but it's like, let's get some recent guys that, and the similarity with, you called it, with Konerko taking over for where Thomas was, and Vaughn in the situation from Abreu. And I think that would be wonderful. The thing with Vaughn, I think he's going to be able to hold his own, but you get so much more action at first base, right? You're involved in so many plays. I'm not saying you just get thrown out there in outfield and it's like, hey, just try not to make a fool out of yourself. But first base, I mean, it can be dangerous over there. You'll get discovered quickly if you can't hold your own, right?
And I would say, again, I've never played one inning at any level. So when I say these things, sometimes if you're listening to this, take it with a grain of salt. But I've always heard that third base is a more reactionary position.
Oh, sure,
right.
Yeah.
I would think that first base, you're not going to get as many balls hit your way just because of the more right-handers in the league than left, but it's more of a reactionary position, position on the field, and where you set up beforehand is going to determine how successful you are. And after that, it's really just being mechanically sound. In the outfield, it's let me look at the way it comes off the bat. What kind of pitch are they throwing in this count? What kind of tendencies does this guy have on this count? And where should I shade him? Where should I move? And how can I break in? And all that. I think there's more that goes on, obviously, out in the outfield. So I think taking that away and just be more reactionary and be sound with your feet, and you should be I think you should be in good shape.
Think about all of the just the dimensions of the outfields that Vaughn had to figure out and learn on the fly, and the way the ball will, kick off of a wall, whether it's down the left field or right field line, or the outfield wall. And I mean, that's all going through your brain, and the amount of the different outfield combinations, you have to work in harmony, with your center fielder. And there was it was a revolving door out there. So to have, it's like, hey, this is my position. Yes, you're going to have to work alongside, a lot of other infielders and what have you. But I think it's going to help. I think that will be transferable offensively. I really do. Some peace of mind, and I think he's going to be able to focus on the offense. So one position that we didn't really mention quite a lot about, but boy, it's on everybody's mind. New year, new problem. It's second base. The last great hope almost was Gene Segura. He was recently signed by the Miami Marlins. Now it's a matter of trade. Will there be a trade for a veteran second baseman? All signs point to it being internal. And Romy Gonzalez looks to be the guy that might have the leg up in the whole competition between Jose Rodriguez, Lenyn Sosa, the legend, Lurie Garcia, Danny
Almost got through
Mendick.
in a whole episode.
Danny Mendick gone, signed with the Mets. Why not bring him back in for $1 million? Bring him in to just create some competition at that position. If you're going to just go kind of with internal options, I'm sick of it. I've been talking about it. You've been talking about it. Sox fans have been, ranting about this for years and years. We hear the message in the offseason, going to focus on second base, and we're stuck with this. And I don't know. It still rubs me. It rubs me the wrong way, Pat. And I can make a case for Romy Gonzalez, but I don't think you roll into a year where you want to return to accustomed levels. You want to return to the top of the AL Central. And you're like, I think we can just do it internally. Let's just figure this out. I think Romy Gonzalez is going to be the guy.
Yeah. Well, the only thing that's going to be positive about that, Nick, if it's a Lenine Sosa or Romy Gonzalez situation going into camp, is there will be a true competition there. And, competition brings out the best in people. So, if that's the way it goes, and somebody truly wins that spot, that can be seen as a positive thing. I don't know where the Sox are at, or I haven't heard a boo about it. Maybe you have, because you've been more in tune lately than I have a little bit with what's been going on. But with Elvis Andrus, I mean, what is that situation like? Is that a possibility? It just seems like that's kind of gone dark.
He hasn't signed with anybody. I haven't heard a lot of rumors. Again, it seems like a no-brainer, but that means he's going to move to second base. And maybe that's not a situation that he wants. Maybe there's a team out there that is like, you know what? We can afford Elvis Andrus. Like, we haven't done a lot this offseason, but we need a shortstop. We need a veteran shortstop, and that's his position. And then he's like, I'd like to play my natural position. I thought maybe I think he's holding on to the hope of the White Sox because, we're on the verge. We can compete in the AL Central. Right now, I don't look at all as the White Sox as a top of the AL team. I think ESPN had a way too early rankings, and they put the Sox at 14th, which is classic. Middle of the road,
right in the middle,
right in the middle. But I think they can compete in the AL Central, and frankly, I think they can win the AL Central. Again, with me leaning into this return to accustomed levels, and let's assume everybody stays healthy, until they don't. And then you've got to kind of readjust. I say, why not? Bring them in. And it's just a matter of, do the Sox say, you know what, we don't have money for that because we spent it all. And we really see a Gonzalez or someone else as the future, but sign Andrus for a year, then sign him for a 1-year deal.
The thing about it is, Nick, that's hard as a fan, is we didn't see enough from either Gonzalez or Lenine Sosa. I don't think, and maybe the sample size was too small to really get excited about it. Right. If there was a lot of, a lot of hype coming out of the minor leagues about it, and it's an anticipation type thing, and it's just a matter of time. But it almost seems like just any other prospect that comes up, it's like, we'll see. This kid's got a shot, but we're not really high on either one of them. So I don't know. It's maybe it's like the old saying in the NFL: if you have two quarterbacks, you don't have any. So if we have two guys competing for it, we don't have any.
I agree with that. And if they're gonna just roll this way, and it's going to be internal between those four guys that we talked about, okay. I love the competition, man. I absolutely love the competition, and I don't want to see a revolving door. I want to see some chemistry between Anderson and whoever wins that second base spot. It's like I think you have to be strong down the middle. You have to. That's one of the old sayings in baseball. And you just don't want all these moving parts where they can't get into a rhythm, your shortstop and your second baseman, because you're trying different guys out and you're retooling the line. How many different lineups did the Sox have in 2022? I mean, I stopped counting after like 60 something. It just, get some consistency. I know injuries played a role in it, but let's assume health. Roll with your consistency. Hopefully somebody wins that outright, and it's not like you're like the best of the worst. I hope somebody just shines. They really step up and they shine.
Well, you're absolutely right in terms of being strong up the middle. We talked about Yaz earlier in the show about where he was at, and how he was hampered so much by his injury. He's not that fantastic of a defensive catcher to begin with. When he is healthy, I think he's adequate, and I think he frames well and all that other stuff. But he was really hampered behind the plate. So, talking about being strong up the middle, that resulted in the Sox being 26th in defensive runs saved in a league. So you're talking about a team that's horrible defensively. And if you can't be strong up the middle, Nick, that's where it all begins. So no doubt about that.
If you haven't read this article, and I know there's a lot of people that do not have a subscription to The Athletic, everybody's got a million different subscriptions that they're dealing with. It's like, you don't want to take on another, but if you're wondering about like a late, gift to yourself, or maybe somebody's birthday's coming up, or maybe it's like, I forgot to get this person. Think about The Athletic. It's wonderful stuff all around baseball. James Fegan, who's your go-to White Sox guy, we've had on this podcast over the years, does some wonderful work. And there was a recent article on involving the new hitting coach Jose Castro, assistant hitting coach Chris Johnson. Tosar was involved. Grifol was in it. And it really, it warmed my winter heart because of the perspective and like the new language that's going to be used. And, the plan, like we have got a plan. We know heading into that night, into that game, what we're going to get thrown at us. There's going to be no guessing. There shouldn't be guessing. So we will be prepared not to just hit singles, but to do some serious work. And it's got some wonderful quotes from Castro and Chris Johnson. It seems like there's going to be like 2.5, 3-headed monster in terms of the hitting world. And that's how Grifol wants it. More eyes, maybe more better. But what I love though, is they're all going to be on the same page. And they called themselves out in the article of like, yes, there could be too many cooks in the kitchen, but we are using the same language. We're communicating the same way to our hitters. And I mean, that's where I go with, we didn't have a guy that hit 20 home runs, this past season. Ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous for the ballpark that we play in 81 games out of the year. That has got to change. And it really, it's the mindset, right? It's the numbers that you're looking at. It's like, well, how can I achieve my end result? It's backward planning, and I loved everything about it. And I was excited about the hires, again, the people that Grifol's surrounding himself with. And when you have weapons and they're dangerous weapons, like Jimenez, like Robert, like Anderson, I do think Benintendi, if he's healthy, if he gets his hand healthy, he could be a 20 home run guy. He absolutely could. I think that's towards the ceiling. And then you factor in my man, the Mr. 2023, Andrew Vaughn. There's a lot of weapons to play with on this roster.
Yeah, you're right, Nick. And it's a very interesting concept. And what I like about it, I'll be watching, and we'll see if it pans out to be good. You talked about they're all going to be, singing from the same hymn book, for lack of a better term, but everybody has a little bit different way of communicating, connecting with people. So I might tell you one thing and it doesn't resonate. The person to the left of me says the exact same thing, but in a different way, and it resonates, and you can take in that information. So you have a better opportunity to connect with everybody in your lineup and make sure everybody's moving in the same way and seeing the things that they should see. So it's going to be, it's interesting because that, when you're talking about coaches in the past, especially, coaches that have veteran players, and it's like, listen, I know how to hit the ball. I've been in this league a long time. I don't need to. So there's a disconnect there. You have a better opportunity if you maybe have a different guy going, hey, I know that you'd see it this way, and I can respect that. But maybe you look at it this way. Let's bring this perspective in, rather than you have one voice telling you this should be done this way all the time, and having that coach honestly having to adapt to the way they have to communicate to people. So I think it's a fascinating way to look at this thing. I don't know if other teams do something in a similar fashion, but it'll be interesting to see if it pans out, and if it doesn't, then we'll have 3 people to blame.
Yeah, I mean, I just think the Sox are way behind, and we know this, right? The Sox are way behind in a lot of things that they do. And if you listen to that press conference when they introduced Grifol, it was alarming to me, really listening to it and going back and listening to it again, and then reading the transcript, so to speak, of what Hahn is saying. I mean, he was saying it in front of all, like, we took many steps backwards. You know, we are trying to play catch up. We've been kind of behind for a while on a lot of different things, and we're trying to set that right. So, again, every little bit helps, and the outside perspectives. Again, that's what we've all been thirsting for: is get people from outside the organization. Stop this just bumping people up or just shimmying people around into different roles, because Jerry likes them and has some sort of relationship. Finally, will it ultimately make a difference? Again, I go through this whole episode, and we all know nothing's truly going to change until there's ownership change. Once that happens, and then we can get, a GM that actually has some accountability, and a president of baseball operations, all that stuff. But this is what we're dealing with in 2023. Okay. And so I'm just trying to stay positive about it. Go in with, hey, if you're telling me these things, I'm going to lean into it. I'm going to buy into it, even though I kind of know better. But I like this. You want to stay healthy. You got a plan to stay healthy. You got a plan for these guys to return to custom levels. It sounds like it. Great. I'm looking forward to that.
I am too, Nick. And you said it exactly right. You can say to your blue in the face that I'm gonna go on a diet and lose weight, but what's your plan, right? So they have a plan to be healthier, and what are you going to do? It may not ultimately work, but let's have a plan rather than just saying we think the guys are just going to be healthier next year. Well, they may well be healthier next year, but why don't we put a plan in place to ensure that they do?
Yeah. And that's what I've been reading, and what I've been liking over the last few weeks, last month or so, is I'm starting to hear the plan. And yeah, I mean, here we are, January 1st, a little less than a month and a half. It's crazy. Can I get before we wrap up, Pat, some way too early predictions from you? Way too early. Okay. Wow. If you're comfortable with it, can you give me maybe a team MVP? And can you give me where the Sox might finish? Okay. Again, way too early. I shouldn't even be asking you this, and I apologize for mentioning it, but just why not? Let's get weird here.
Well, if you're going to talk about team MVP for the last, I think 3 years, I think my team MVP prediction was Yoan Moncada. I'm off of it. I'm off Yoan Moncada.
Oh, all right.
Okay. So that's the shock of the year. Right. I think Robert's going to be my team MVP. I mentioned him in terms of who, I need to see in terms of resolutions this year. And I think a lot rests on him. So if this team's going to be successful, and you talked about being a scary lineup, if you have a guy like Luis Robert that has the talent and potential that he has, and teams have to circle his name in the lineup every day and plan, how are we going to attack this guy? Like, they have a plan for everybody, right? We're going to attack, but we cannot let this guy right here beat us. Luis Robert has to be that guy. He has to be the guy that other teams look at and go, we can't get beat by that guy. Yep. And if you can do that, then that's fantastic. So I'll predict him as our team MVP this year. And what was the other question? Our record? Was that the question?
Yeah, really. Include that. And where is this team going to finish?
Well, I'll go out on a limb. Maybe it's not a huge limb, but I'll go out on a limb and say this team should win this division. It really should. It still has the most talent in terms of any other team in the division. Now, They may not have, if you're just looking at last year's teams, this team lacked the heart, right? They lack the heart of the Guardians. So if you can match that, if you can match their intensity and their heart and their passion and the way that they paid attention to fundamentals and they ran the bases and played defense, you have more talent than them and you should exceed them by at least 4 or 5 games in this division. Now, I don't know where the Twins are at. The Twins seem to be, they're always there somehow. They 2 years ago, it was a down year for them. Last year, they weren't much better in really, it wasn't like they were.
I'm not blown away by their
the
pitching
division or anything
as we talk right now.
Yeah. So you should still win this division. The Tigers had a lot of hype the year before. I don't know where they're at in terms of,
they're floundering. They're
what
nowhere.
They're going to be, and ultimately. So I'll say the Sox win this division. I say they win it by about 4 or 5 games, and I think it's more of a separation towards the end of the year than a full year like domination of any kind. I think they hold their own and they separate themselves from the rest of the field down the stretch.
Yeah, I'm basing off of good health, players returning to their accustomed levels, and Pedro Grifol doing everything he said he was going to do by creating that culture from the get-go, urgency from the get-go. Hey, this is going to be year of the Vaughn, but Eloy Jimenez is going to be your team MVP. I think he is going to have a monster year if he focuses on designated hitter. There's not a lot of worry of, am I going to get injured in left field? I think he's going to come to life. I really, but Robert is a great pick. I can see Jimenez. I could see Jimenez over 40 home runs. I could see him 90 to 100 RBIs. If he plays 135 games, 140 games, we haven't experienced this stuff yet, and that's what we've talked about over the years on this podcast. We don't even know the potential of some of these guys. We haven't even talked pitching really, which we can get to in the next episode on some of those levels. But so I'm high on Eloy Jimenez. I said on the Locked On Sox podcast last week when I did some way too early predictions. Again, I was aggressive, but to everything you said, Pat, like they can reclaim the AL Central. I got this team right now on January 1st. They can win 90 games. They can make a 9.
Okay, I thought you were going to say something ridiculous. That doesn't seem that ridiculous.
Well,
I'd put him at about 93. That's why
they could go 90 and 72, and I see them winning the Central. Now, I don't know how much further they're going to get after that. Did they make any deals? At the deadline, what's their pitching situation? Are they running out of gas? Again, I think that is within their realm right now, and that should warm everybody's hearts. Here we are in these winter months.
Yeah, I'll take 90 wins. I think I'm with you. And I like I said, 93 feels like a right number for me. I don't know why. But
I know why.
Maybe just drunk on the holiday cheer, Nick. But it just I feel like this team it will be more what we thought the team was going to be last year than what it was.
Okay, I like it. Let's keep that positive movement going forward. 93, Pat, is we're coming up on the anniversary year of the 93 team, a favorite team of you and I. That's the 30th anniversary of the 93 team. So why not win 93 games this season in honor of Blackjack and Thomas and One Dog?
I love how you spun that, and it was wonderful. That's just how professional you are. You're just amazing.
I appreciate that, Pat.
And that's all without a fishing trip. It's awesome.
Always a pleasure, buddy. This was a blast.
Nick, I have to say this has got to be the best show of the year so far for us, and bully on us for doing this. And thank you to everybody that will eventually listen to this podcast.
Folks, really appreciate you tuned in live. You're listening wherever your life takes you. It has been a pleasure doing this podcast. This is our 5th season. This is episode 201. You can find the podcast absolutely everywhere you find your podcast. We're on social media. at Good Guys TB on Twitter. We've got a Facebook fan page, and we've also got a YouTube channel. So subscribe. You can find this podcast and consume it that way as well. For Pat Hester, I'm Nick Murawski. Want to thank you all so very much for joining us once again for a very fan-centric Chicago White Sox podcast. Good Guys Talk Back. Until next time, go Sox.